Welcome to the first video in this series for PowerFX. My name is David and I'll be joining you for the remainder of this very long course that is going to cover or try to cover every single function that you're going to find or encounter in the PowerFX language. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with loading up a Power App for this lesson, and to do that, hopefully you have a development environment. If you don't, please watch the only video in this series that doesn't have a matching thumbnail. It describes Microsoft Power Platform, development environment, and things of that nature. You should find that in this playlist. Okay, that being said, let's come over here to apps. There's three different ways currently to get to a blank canvas app, and we just want to get the studio open so that we can load up our app. So the first way is coming up under here, start with a page design. There's a humongous tile on the screen that you can see right here. Let's start with a page design, and then of course there's a drop down with this button, start with a page design. And so I'll just click here for the purposes of every one of those three previous ways will get you to this window. Just click on blank canvas and this will load up Studio and you'll have a blank app. Once this loads, then what we're going to need to do is to open our existing app. So let's go ahead and skip this for now. Come under the ellipsis and choose Open. And this gives us the opportunity to browse our local files. And from here, I have this lesson. Now, if you're not having access because you're not a member of this group, then you'll have to go ahead and subscribe and pay the nominal fee to get access to all of the content. Otherwise, simply just watch along, learn, and use your own environment to type into these functions and or do the setup. But the benefit of having access to the files is you can simply just use this in your library to use as a reference and be able to copy and paste from some of the examples. Because even though this video is going to be very simple with some simple functions, other functions are not going to be so simple because there's a lot of additional setup that you're going to need to do to get to the point where you can even use the function. So that's where the power of a subscription will come in handy. Okay, that being said, here we go. We're going to open up this local file and we're not going to worry about saving the blank doc. Give it a couple moments to completely and fully load up, and now you'll have today's lesson. So since this is the first video in the series, I'll just kind of explain some consistency for the remainder of the series. The documentation for the function that we're always going to be working on is going to be located here. Pressing and holding the Alt key will allow you to get to the documentation. And as you can see, we're dealing with these functions today. If I go back over to the Power App, we can see up here, this will also signify what function it is that we're working on. And then of course, this is the video that will accompany the document, and then we'll get all through this. So this one, all we do is press the Alt key and press Show Table. This will give us the information. And by the way, if you don't want to press the Alt key, you can just use the play. Although you're going to need to be out of this and in the development area in order to be able to interact with, so that you can type the functions that you're seeing from the formula column in the table to make sure that you can go ahead and follow along and or notate the information that you're looking for. Okay, so the functions that we're going to be covering today are these mathematical functions. I'm not going to go into great detail because honestly, I have never used these except for, I don't know, one or two. I think I used abs once or twice. I did use the power and I have used square root. But the logarithm and the natural logarithm and the exp function, which is essentially very confusing. Actually, you know what? Let's go through these a little bit and we'll go through each one and talk about them. So the only time you'd use this abs function is all it does is it inverts a negative number into a positive number. A lot of times, or at least the way that I used it, if you wind up having a negative number and you need it to be a positive number for whatever reason, and negative might cause a problem or an issue or bad for calculation or whatever the case may be, because it's a number and not a text, you can't just use the replace function to get rid of the negative. It is a number, so you'll have to use this abs function to invert the negative number to a positive. That's all it does. You feed in any negative number and it's going to come out positive. So just know that that's what you want to use abs for. All right, the next one that kind of blew my mind because I didn't understand what it is and how to use it, and I'm probably even, again, I'm not very big into some of this advanced math. There may be a reason for you to use it, and there may not be a reason for you to use it, but if you do need to use it, you're going to know why that you need to use it, and you'll be using these for very specific reasons. So the thing that blew my mind, I thought this was just like an exponent, right? And I'm like, an exponent of what number, right? And I was trying to figure out, okay, this is an exponent, and we're going to take exponent 2, but what are we doing this of? And then I saw in the description it said e times e, and I'm like, what the hell is e? And so I had to go and look that up, but it didn't tell me anything in the documentation. It just assumes, again, that you know what this math is and what it's about. So I had to come over here to Poe. Now, for those of you not interested or not even knowing what Poe is a place, it's like ChatGPT, that allows you to use a bunch of different large language models, including ChatGPT. So you get the base one, they call it Assistant. There is a ChatGPT. You can create your own. You have Claude. You have access to different variations of ChatGPT. You have Llama. You got the Solar Mini, a bunch of different ones. Anyway, I like to use it because I use a bunch of different large language models. But in any event, if you just use ChatGPT, go ahead and use it. So just feel free to type it. So one of the things you could do, and I like talking to it because I hate typing if I don't have to, and I'll say, let's try this again. Let's clear this out. Or try to clear this out. For some reason it's not clearing out. Okay. In PowerFX, what does E stand for in the function of EXP? And we'll stop the recording and then we'll ask. Now, if this does the correct find like it did last time, which it didn't necessarily do, but in any event, yeah, it did. Okay, so E, it stands for Euler's number, and Euler is like pi or like phi, like for example pi 3.14 blah blah blah, I can't remember all the numbers, and then phi phi is half of pi, so it's like 1.6 something or other, I can't remember those numbers either, but these are constants, values that are used typically in Newtonian calculus, and so in any event, that's what these numbers are. Again, I'm not a big math major here, just trying to explain what the function is, but I got tripped up thinking it had to do with just an exponent, but it was using some unknown variable of e, and I'm like, well, what the heck is the value of e? And so that's what this is. And so if you run across a lot of things in the documentation, this is exactly what I do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So use GPT. These things are so awesome today. It can really help us learn a lot of stuff that we're not knowing. So anything you don't learn from my videos, a lot of times, if I don't know it either, I'm using some sort of a GPT to ask it, hey, what the heck's going on here and how do I use this? All right, so that's exp. All right, now you have this natural logarithm and these two different log functions, or this same log function, but two different ways to use it. And so log 100 just assumes a base of 10 in the logarithmic calculation. Then log can take an additional parameter, a second parameter. So if you don't want to use the assigned default base 10, you can turn around and assign it the base 2. If we look at these for log, let's see here, log 100 is what was in the example, and you can see that the output of this is not the same. So what did I do wrong here? Oh, that's exactly what I did wrong. Let's come over here and type it correctly. Log 100 should be 2. Yep, okay, is 2. And it's because it's assuming that there is a basal change. So let's go over here to do log 2. And so here, actually in the example, they use 64 and 2. So let's do this. 64 and 2, and this comes out to be 6. But again, this optional second parameter enabled us to go ahead and provide a number to set or override the base 10. Another thing too to understand when you're using functions, so they just make this a recent change. I don't remember this being here all the time, but if I just type in log and into parenthesis, this says I'm going to use the log function, but see there's 4 here? That means there's 4 different ways to use this log. It takes in many different types of parameters, so we can do log and number. That's the way of using it, one, and it tells you. it's going to assume that the default base is 10. This second variation allows us to specify a base and override it. There's a third variation of it, where a column of a numeric value to process. Honestly, I don't even know what this means or how to do or use it here. I'm not really understanding 100% of what this is. I would have to go through and play with it to try this variation of it. But essentially, taking an input and assuming the base of 10. I think this is really nothing more than the first iteration, but I'm not exactly sure what the difference is, because this one says number and this one says input. This may be taking a value from another calculation as the input parameter, or it's accepting an input, such as something that you feed into maybe a text input box or something. Okay, and then of course this is using it here as well. Returns based on column numbers given a base number. Yeah, it's the same type of thing. I'm not really sure how they or why they denoted it, but the documentation only shows these two different variations. Excuse me, of that. Okay, the final one is power. Now power is interesting. So power, if we do power and we do as shown here 5 to the power of 3, it should be 125 that comes out, and it does. Now here's something interesting. There are operational characters inside of the Power Platform that you can use. Obviously plus is for addition, minus is for subtraction, but multiplication is this asterisk, and the division is this / So if we do this, instead of using the power, we could do the same thing with this operational character called the caret. And it's you do shift, and let's see, on my keyboard it's shift number 6, not from the numerical keypad, but shift in the middle of the keyboard, like above T and Y. And so this caret says this is an exponent. So I can get the same 125 output by not wrapping it in a function, but simply using this shortcut code. This is not covered in this series. There's a modulus function that you can use mostly in programming with a percentile. It doesn't work here. You do have to use the mod function, but we'll get to that when we cover mod in a later date. All right, so the final one is square root. So we've got this one here, and what's the square root of 9? And of course we have the output of 3. We can change this to any different number, and if we're looking for this, we do square root, and we see there's 2 different variations of it. And then of course it's always referring to this input. So in other words, either we just put in the hard character, or I believe, as we're seeing more and more examples of this, input is simply just coming from a different value elsewhere. It could be a variable or any other type of thing. All right, so that is it. We're going to wrap up this video, and we will see you in the second video within this series as we cover the entire gamut of all of the PowerFX functions. That's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you.